Welcome back to Story of Growth, the podcast where we explore real stories of transformation and resilience. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a topic that affects millions of professionals worldwide: burnout. Our guest today experienced a complete career breakdown at the height of their success, only to rebuild their life from the ground up. This isn't just another productivity hack episode. This is a raw, honest conversation about hitting rock bottom and finding your way back to balance. Please welcome Sarah, who went from being a high-performing marketing executive to, well, I'll let her tell that story. Sarah, thank you so much for being here and for being willing to share what I know is a very personal journey.
Thank you for having me. I'm nervous, to be honest, but I think these conversations need to happen. Too many of us are suffering in silence.
Let's start with the before picture. Paint us a picture of your life when everything looked perfect from the outside.
Oh, it looked incredible. I was 32, VP of marketing at a tech startup, pulling in six figures, living in a beautiful apartment downtown. I was the poster child for having it all together. I was working 70 hours a week, traveling constantly, always connected to my phone. I thought I was living the dream.
What did a typical day look like back then?
I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to check emails from our European clients, coffee, gym if I was lucky, though I'd often skip it for another meeting. Then it was back-to-back meetings until 7 or 8 p.m. I'd grab dinner at my desk, work until 11, then crash. Weekends? What weekends? I was always just catching up on a few things.
And you thought this was sustainable.
I didn't think about it at all, honestly. I was addicted to the rush, the validation, the constant sense of importance. Every emergency felt like I was the only person who could solve it. I wore my exhaustion like a badge of honor.
So what happened? What was your breaking point?
A long pause. It was a Tuesday morning in March. I remember because I had this huge presentation to the board that afternoon. I woke up and I couldn't get out of bed. Not because I was tired, I was always tired, but because I felt this crushing weight on my chest. I started crying and couldn't stop.
That sounds terrifying.
It was. I called in sick for the first time in 3 years, and even then I felt guilty. I spent the entire day in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking, what is wrong with me? I had everything I thought I wanted, so why did I feel so empty?
Did you recognize it as burnout at the time?
Not at all. I thought I was having some kind of breakdown, maybe depression. It took my doctor explaining it to me. She said, Sarah, your body is forcing you to stop because you won't do it yourself. That hit hard.
How long did it take before you started taking action?
Sighs. Too long. I took a week off, went back to work, and tried to push through it. But I wasn't the same. I'd have panic attacks in meetings. I couldn't make simple decisions. My performance plummeted. After 2 months of struggling, my boss and I agreed I needed to take extended leave.
That must have been a huge blow to your identity.
It destroyed me initially. I was the successful one in my family, among my friends. Suddenly, I was this person who couldn't handle their job. I felt like a complete failure.
What was the turning point for you? When did you start to see this as an opportunity rather than a catastrophe?
It was about 3 months into my leave. I was seeing a therapist, and she asked me a question that changed everything. When was the last time you did something just because you enjoyed it, not because it would help your career or impress someone?
And what was your answer?
I couldn't answer. I literally couldn't remember. That's when I realized I had completely lost myself in this pursuit of external validation. I had no idea who I was outside of my job title.
How did you start rebuilding from there?
Very slowly. I started with tiny things. I began reading fiction again, something I used to love but had given up because it wasn't productive. I started cooking, taking long walks without my phone. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected.
What about the practical side? How did you handle the financial pressure and career concerns?
That was the hardest part. I had to completely reshape my relationship with money and success. I moved to a smaller apartment, cut my expenses dramatically. It was humbling, but also liberating. I realized how much of my spending was just to maintain an image.
And professionally, how did you approach getting back to work?
I knew I couldn't go back to the same environment. I spent 6 months freelancing, working maybe 20 hours a week. It felt strange at first, like I was being lazy, but I was actually more creative and productive than I'd been in years.
What were some of the key mindset shifts that made the biggest difference?
The biggest one was learning to say no. I used to say yes to everything because I thought it made me valuable. Now I realize that my worth isn't determined by how much I can take on. I also had to redefine success. Instead of just looking at salary and title, I started prioritizing things like work-life balance, company culture, and personal fulfillment.
Can you share some practical strategies that our listeners could implement if they're feeling overwhelmed right now?
Absolutely. First, start tracking your energy levels throughout the day for a week. Notice when you feel energized versus drained. That data is gold. Second, implement what I call micro boundaries. Maybe it's not checking email after 8 p.m. or taking a real lunch break. Start small.
What else?
Learn to recognize your early warning signs. For me, it's when I start skipping meals or when I feel that tightness in my chest during meetings. Now, when I notice these signs, I take immediate action, even if it's just stepping outside for 5 minutes of fresh air.
What about support systems? How important were other people in your recovery?
Crucial. I had isolated myself so much during my burnout phase. Reconnecting with friends and family reminded me that my value as a person isn't tied to my productivity. I also found a mentor who had gone through something similar. Having someone who understood was invaluable.
For someone who's in the thick of burnout right now, what would you want them to know?
Voice softening. First, that it's not your fault. We live in a culture that glorifies overwork and treats burnout like a personal failing. It's not. Second, that this can be a turning point, not just an ending. I know it doesn't feel like it when you're in it, but burnout can be your body's way of forcing you towards a better life. Don't wait for burnout to make changes. Start now.
And what does balance look like for you now?
It's not perfect and it's not static. Some weeks are busier than others, but now I have non-negotiables. I exercise 3 times a week. I have dinner with friends at least twice a month, and I take real vacations where I actually disconnect. I also check in with myself regularly. Am I living my values or just reacting to demands?
Where are you professionally now?
I'm a marketing consultant, which gives me much more control over my schedule and clients. I make about 30% less than I did before, but my life is infinitely richer. I work with companies that align with my values, and I actually enjoy Monday mornings again.
Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Your career is just one part of your life, not the whole thing. And sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having everything fall apart because it forces you to rebuild in a way that actually serves you. Don't wait for burnout to make changes. Start now.
Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your story with such honesty and vulnerability. I know this will help so many people.
Thank you for giving me the space to share it.
To our listeners, if you're struggling with burnout or work-life balance, remember that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. We'll link some resources in the description below. If Sarah's story resonated with you, please share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, your story of growth is still being written. Until next time, take care of yourselves.